In the Blue Mountains, we met Charlotte Smith with her gorgeous collection of couture. We had such a huge response on the program, we thought we'd send Adrian out for a more in-depth look at some of the highlights.
In the past 30 years, I've seen fashion emerge as a major collectible. All the more reason to visit Charlotte Smith's collection, which is one of the biggest and best in Australia, and take a closer look.
Well, 4 years ago, my American godmother, Doris Darnell, bequeathed me her 3,500-piece collection of vintage clothing and accessories. Doris was a Quaker, and although Quakers are not normally associated with clothing, she said she was a maverick. She loved her mother's clothing, which she started wearing in the Depression in the 1930s, and from then on people gave her things, and 7 years later she had a huge collection. I really felt morally bound to keep that collection together and exhibit it and continue telling the stories of the clothing and the donors. I have pieces that start as early as 1730 and move up to 2006.
Now, Charlotte, we're starting our 20th century time travel here with this wonderful dress by Lucille from 1911. Now, what's distinctive about this period?
This is the first time since the 1900s where women were corset-free. The fabric just folds down over their body. There's nothing underneath that creates the shape as before.
Shall we move on to the 30s?
Love to. In France, we've got Jean Patou and Madeleine Vionnet, both working in the 1930s. I think the woman's body began to shape the dresses rather than having corsetry and undergarments before. And what's funny is that in the 1930s, with the movie stars, they were asked not to wear plunging necklines, which they thought was a bit revealing. So, of course, what they did was they had plunging backlines.
Now, here we are in the 40s and 50s.
Both of these dresses are Christian Dior, and the thing that's so fabulous about them is that they incorporate the new look. When the corset was just slightly put back into the waist of the dresses, it was fitted, cinched waist with a nice flaring rounded hip. As a custodian, I'm also a curator, so I have to make sure that my collection is conserved and preserved. When you store a dress in a box, it has to be a museum-quality, acid-free box. I layer my dresses with acid-free paper, and I have to make sure the conditions are as close to museum quality as possible.
Well, big buttons and brown. We must be in the 1960s.
We're here, and we're with Jean Muir, a London designer, and another designer called Guy de Moulier, who worked from Caracas. Jean Muir preferred her jersey, whereas, of course, this is a lovely wool, which means it's easier for me as a collector to keep these pieces because they are sturdier.
Every time I think about 80s fashions, I'm thinking big puffy shoulders and wide lapels and gaudy colours. What have we got here?
We have here Versace with his wonderful Rococo pattern, which was sort of his symbol at the time. And this dress back here is a Guy Laroche dress, a bit like you were thinking of the 80s, big shoulders, gaudy colors, but still a very beautiful use of fabrics. I look at my collection not just as a collection of pretty dresses, but as a collection recording social history through fashion.
We could shoot a whole episode on Charlotte's collection.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff.
It's back to tonight's mystery item, and it's about as far from high fashion as you can get. Is it a tool? Is it an instrument? Or is it just something we found lying around the studio? Who knows? Maybe these people.
You pop your tea leaves in, pop it